Hello everyone, and what is up, beautiful people of YouTube, beautiful people of Twitter, and bitches on Reddit. Today we're taking a look at should you roll a Marauder. As many of you know, my history with Marauders is not great, so we're gonna have to talk positively about Marauders. Why do I have to talk positively about Marauders? I'd like to talk shit about Marauders. I can talk shit about Marauders all day, but we're here to try and sell you playing a Marauder. And the first thing we're going to say about that is, have you thought about a Guardian? Really? They're fun. They're really fun to play, Guardians. I've been playing a Guardian lately. They're really fun. You're not going to pick a Guardian, are you? You picked a Marauder. You're stuck with that class now, and you want to know why you should have rolled it. Well, the Marauder is a very specialized class. It was designed for a specific purpose, and that purpose was raiding. Marauders were and are probably one of the ultimate raiding DPS classes. They are for so many reasons. Of course, they do excellent damage in endgame PvE. They do fantastic damage, and they bring so much raid utility. That's why we put up with their horribleness generally. It's not that we hate the Marauder class, it's just that the general person who plays a Marauder is an idiot. 99.99% of them are idiots. I would say all of them, but then I'd have... In fact, I'm an idiot for playing a Marauder as well. I'll put myself in that camp as being an idiot Marauder. Screw it. Most of them, again, the Marauder is a DPS class only. If you pick the, if you want a tank, you have to pick a Juggernaut. Unfortunately, someone should really tell Marauder players that if you want a tank, pick a Juggernaut, pick a Guardian. Don't pick the Marauder, because a lot of these Marauders think they're tanks, or at least try to jump in ahead of the tank, and that's one of the big problems with them. That's why I have a saying, let the Marauder die as a healer. Because if they want to jump in, fine, jump in, take aggro. You're going to die. I'm not going to heal you. And if I'm a tank, I ain't going to taunt for you. I ain't taunt them off you. I just wait till you die and then I'll taunt. I'm not taking those enemies off you. You pulled them, you can deal with them. That's my attitude to Marauder. Generally the Marauder, you rarely get a sniper or an assassin or anything like that pulls. It's always the Marauders that do it. It's always the Marauders that ninja pull. Always them. People say, oh, you're just picking on the Marauder, but that's my experience being in pugs with Marauders, flashpoints, operations. It doesn't matter, but the Marauder, let's talk about the Marauder as a class then. Let's get into this. And the Marauder is my least favorite class to play as. And from a leveling perspective, I really did not like leveling as a Marauder, to be honest with you. I leveled a Sentinel as my first character, and I put it down to the fact that I was new to the game at the time. The game was new at the time as well, so I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, to be honest, and I put it down to that. But then I leveled the Marauder a bit more recently, about 6 months ago. I leveled the Marauder, and I found that it was the wrong class, I think, I picked as a first time player. If you're gonna do that as a newbie player, unless you are specifically know what you're gonna do, if you're there for a purpose at end game, pick if you know what you're gonna do, pick a Marauder. If you want to be a raider, pick a Marauder. Right, that's what I'll tell you to do. If you want to be a bit more flexible, if you want to just see the story, if you want to just do the Warrior or the Jedi Knight story, then pick the Guardian or Juggernaut. To be honest with you, you get much better defensive cooldowns for yourself, in particular. Very good defensive cooldowns actually. Things like Enrage Defense, which is just the heal to full button. Awesome. You get things like Endure Pain, increases your maximum health. But we'll talk about them more in the Juggernaut Guardian video. This is the Marauder Sentinel video, so we'll get back to the Sentinel. The big problem with them is they are a glass cannon class, and they're very much level and gear dependent, so you want to tend to be the right level and the right gear for the leveling content that you're doing. If you're slightly under, you're going to struggle a little bit, I find, as a Marauder. It's not that they don't produce enough damage. They certainly produce a lot of damage, but they're very sort of gear sensitive. I always find they're very sensitive to gearing up, particularly if you go with Annihilation spec. Annihilation is probably the top spec right now, probably the overpowered spec of the Marauder tree, of the 3 Marauder skill trees that you can go for, should I say. Annihilation is probably at the top of it, Watchman if you're a Sentinel. Again, the problem I have with Annihilation is that I would wait until I was geared until I went to Annihilation. While you're gearing, my advice is to go with the middle tree. Go with Carnage or Combat if you're a Sentinel. I would go with that skill tree just because you get to accuracy cap a lot quicker because you get a 6% boost. You get 3% from the skill tree and 3% from the lightsaber form. So you get 6% accuracy boost. You can get another 1% for maxing out affection with all your companions. So you get to the accuracy cap quicker. The problem with Annihilation is you have to be accuracy cap and you really have to have crit in order to make it work well. If you've got all those things, if you're kind of fully geared, if you're into sort of the 180 gear and you're gearing towards Nightmare, I would switch. If you're sort of 168 to 180, I would maybe make the switch to Annihilation from Carnage. Carnage is decent. Carnage is a decent spec. I like Carnage. I play Carnage on my Marauder because he's not fully geared yet, and I play Watchman, the same as Annihilation, on my Sentinel, who is better geared and hit her accuracy cap. At least we're still focusing on crit with her, still building her around crit, because you want crit for a dot spec. It's always a useful thing to have for a dot spec, to have a bit of crit. Because we're not doing, you know, big heavy damage, you know, we're doing lots of little damage over time. We want those to crit because it helps us out. I always think that crit is handy for a dot spec. And again, so the Marauder, not a great class to solo with. Soloing with the Marauder is terrible. I hate doing dailies as a Marauder. Doing dailies as a Guardian, my DPS Guardian, my Vigilant Spec Guardian, is a riot and a lot of fun, I find. Because the Guardian, I just think, is better geared and better engineered towards soloing than the Marauder. The Marauder, we really need the decently geared companion. We need like a tank or healer companion to really take advantage of a Marauder or Sentinel, I find. Again, I'm not a big fan of the Marauder. They are a glass cannon class. You got to accept that when you roll them. People say they solo things as a Marauder, but then I say, well, what gear are you in? And they say to me, well, 180 gear I'm in. And it's like, yeah, I soloed that same flashpoint as a Sage in 162 gear. That's the difference between something, say, a Marauder and a class like a Sage or a utility class, is we can solo things in lesser gear. We really need that. You need the gear to do it because you need to be able to survive. I soloed as a Sage my the HK flashpoint, which was False Emperor normal, and what was this, the hard mode one? The one where you fight Grand Moff Killer Room, I can't remember what it's called. Maelstrom Prison, that's the one at the end of it. And I was able to do that in 162 gear. Now I had a Marauder in, not a Marauder, Sentinel, sorry, in 168 gear, and I could not solo, what's it called? False Emperor normal, to be honest. And I could, you know, as a Merc, I can solo False Emperor hard mode, and I can solo most of the hard mode flashpoints as a Merc. Haven't tried Lost Island yet, or Kaon Under Siege. I'll need to try them as a Merc now that I'm fully 180 geared. But again, I was in kind of 162 gear with my Merc, and we can solo things in lower gear. Sometimes hitting Rage, because I was in healer spec, and my not my HK, Mako I was like a healer with a healer companion, so we hit in Rage on Jindo Cray, actually, but it didn't matter because I had a healer with a healer companion. To be honest, I was going to say I used HK, but I was getting the HK, so I tend to use HK now, but I didn't have HK 51 at the time, of course, because I was acquiring him. Almost slipped up there with that one there. I was like, yeah, I used HK. It's like, oh, you were getting the HK quest, so I was like, yeah, because I used Mako beforehand, so I was a healer with a healer companion. That was fun. Never died though. You never died. That was the good thing about that spec, is healer with a healer companion. It's going to be a long quest, but you ain't going to die. But then we'll get back to the Marauder. Marauder, they do have a big problem because you're relying a lot on things like your companion for heals and your companion for tanking, and companions are not the brightest of people. They're not the best coded characters. They still try to CC bosses that can't be CC'd. Like, what the hell are you doing, Quinn? You can't CC that guy, he's a boss, just heal me. You know, you end up turning his CC off, or you end up having to micromanage him, which I don't like, micromanaging companions. I wish they had a system that was similar to Dragon Age, where you could have scripts for your companions, and you could say, right, my health's low, heal me. My health's not low, attack. Things like that would be better for SWTOR, I think. I would like to see that implemented in the future. But again, you're a Marauder class. Are you going to roll one? Of course you're going to roll one. You're not going to listen to what I say. It doesn't affect the fact that the Marauder is one of the most played classes in the game, I would say. A lot of people roll Marauders just because they look cool. Having 2 lightsabers looks cool. And you have to admit that. That's why I picked it originally. I picked the Sentinel. I thought, Guardian 1 lightsaber, Marauder 2 lightsabers. Marauder will do double damage, I wonder. They don't. They don't do double damage because you get a massive penalty to your offhand. But again, if you know what you're gonna do, pick a Marauder. If you're not sure what you want to do, if you want to just do soloing and experience the story, I wouldn't recommend a Marauder. I'd pick a Guardian or Juggernaut. Just having heavy armor and better defensive cooldowns. The problem with, well, we'll talk about the problem with the Guardian's defensive cooldowns when we do the Guardian / Juggernaut video, which we will do next. So that'll be the next video. So thank you for joining me for this, and we'll see you soon, and goodbye.